Alright battlers, welcome back to a brand new Go Battle League video. I've been reading all of your comments, I've been taking all of your feedback. You wanted to see some rank 10 matches, some wins and some losses, and some spicier teams. In this video I've compiled some of my favorite rank 10 games. These things are full of twists and turns and they're so much fun. Here we see our Lapras coming in against Altaria. My opponent switches though into Meganium. I'm running Ice Beam and Surf here. Let's see if my opponent calls the bluff. And they do not. My opponent gets Ice Beamed. Meganium is extremely weak at this point. I realize that I can just get my Lapras one shield and then Ice Shard down the Meganium. So I am down a shield, but they are down a Pokemon because of that devastating Ice Beam. In comes Lantern, and Lantern is a huge threat to water types like Lapras, especially running Spark. So I'm actually going to fire off my Surf here, revealing my second move just because I think Lapras is pretty much cooked. I'm not going to swap it out here because I don't want to switch lock myself, and I know the Thunderbolt is coming. So Lapras will go down. I think things over. I have double water types. One is a water ground, so I decided to bring in my Swampert. Swampert is going to somewhat resist those electric attacks because of its ground typing. It won't be as devastating as something like a Azumarill. Here comes an attack from Lantern, and it is a Hydro Pump, which I was not expecting. In comes that Altaria, and I'm barely able to get off a Hydro Cannon with my Swampert. Now, trainers, the end of this match is so wild. I have never seen two sacrificial swaps go so wrong in a game like you're going to see here. Up against this Altaria with two shields, I really at this point did not believe I had a single chance to win this game. This is so absurd. Just this position is so bad. I do fire up the Ice Beam here against the Altaria and burn the first shield. Azumarill is so bulky, it can withstand those Dragon Breaths no problem, but the Sky attacks are not going to stop. I fire off that second Ice Beam to take my opponent's second shield, and we get it. Now here is where it becomes very critical, trainers. I'm trying to sack swap my Swampert here, and it doesn't work. So back in comes my Azumarill. My opponent brings out Lantern, and the sack swap doesn't work there either, but I have my Ice Beam, so I Ice Beam this Altaria to win the game. Such a wild, wild ending. Our next game is against Hyperion. Here we see our Whiscash going up against Skarmory. Now, I look over my options here, and I do have Azumarill and Altaria. Azumarill obviously being the more hard counter to Skarmory, but here comes the Sky Attack. I allow it through. A simultaneous swap. In comes Haunter, and guess what, trainers? I think this is a Shadow Punch, but it is not. Sludge Bomb rocks my Azumarill. I did not expect that at all. Shout out to Shagness. After I featured her team on my previous video, I should have known this was coming, but all the same, still a surprise to face off against a Haunter like this. So I do shield the Shadow Punch with Whiscash and then go for the Mud Bomb. Obviously, in hindsight, if I could have left my Whiscash in against Haunter, that would have been the best scenario, but didn't turn out that way. In comes the opposing Whiscash. I'm going to catch this Mud Bomb with Altaria, and trainers, remember how much damage that Mud Bomb did, right? Very, very little, right? Well, we're going to see later in the match that little bit of damage makes all the difference. Here our Sky Attack hits that Skarmory for a decent damage, and this is a battle of the top birds. Skarmory being a steel type is not going to be very affected by the Dragon Breaths from Altaria, but I can still try to put some pressure on it with the Sky Attacks here. That second Sky Attack does land. This Skarmory is very weak and my switch timer is up. At this point, I'm actually going to shield my Altaria and then look for the swap into Whiscash for the farm down. In comes my opposing Whiscash. I'm going to fire off my Mud Bomb here, trying to get the shield out of my opponent. Maybe they were thinking it was a Blizzard, but because they did not shield, we're going down the Mud Bomb route. I fire off a second Mud Bomb. Here comes a third Mud Bomb for me, and my opponent has to shield or they will be knocked out. My opponent does shield, and they fire off their own Mud Bomb. This will be enough to bring down Whiscash, and check this out, trainers. In comes Altaria, and I don't get to the Sky Attack in time. The Mud Bomb is just enough to win it. For this next game, I take a page out of For the Battles playbook and I lead with the Alolan Ninetales. Our opponent's going to lead with Haunter here, so this is a decent matchup, but we do not want to get hit by a Sludge Bomb. I bring in my Bronzong here, and the confusion is going to rock Haunter, but this is a double-edged sword, trainers. That Shadow Punch does so much damage to my Bronzong. My opponent actually switches into Skarmory, which is not a terrible decision. Skarmory, though, being a flying type, Bronzong being such a bulky steel type, I brought Bronzong on my team to counter flying type Pokemon. So this is actually not a bad situation for me so far. I do go for the Psyshock here. Of course, you wish it was something squishier like an Altaria or a Noctowl or a Golbat, but again, a lot of trainers are running very top meta, and Skarmory is part of that top meta. In comes my Alola Ninetales. I'm actually able to farm down the rest of this Skarmory with Charms, which is really nice. My opponent brings in the Haunter again and doing work with Charms still. Here comes a charge move though from Haunter, and I am going to shield the Shadow Punch. One more Charm will bring down the Haunter. My opponent has 2 shields. In comes Victory Bell, trainers. I'm going to go straight for the Ice Beam here, and this match really highlights the importance of getting the bluffs right. In comes my Venusaur. I am out of shields, but check this out, trainers. I go straight for the Sludge Bomb. Does my opponent shield? No, that is it. GG's. Going to this game, I lead my Toxicroak. I do have Frostlass and my Venusaur in the back. This is a very interesting showcase, trainers, because this is the same opponent I played twice in a row, and we play our games a little bit differently. So as you can see there, I did win the lead with Registeel. In comes the Ludicolo. I fire off the Sludge Bomb. It does get shielded. In comes my Frostlass. So Frostlass being Ice and Ghost, I brought it on my team to counter the flying types and to counter the psychics that could really threaten Toxicroak. So I think it's a perfect bodyguard, but it is squishy, and these Razor Leafs are really eating away at us. I do drop the Avalanche on that Ludicolo to bring it down. In comes Registeel, and I'm reset basically back to the beginning, so this is not a bad situation for me. In comes my Toxicroak, and we are going to fire off a few counters here against Registeel. This is my only Registeel counter though, so I must shield it. I get a Mud Bomb, but my opponent makes a beautiful switch into their Tropius. In comes my Venusaur. This is a Razor Leaf Tropius, so it's not going to get to its charge moves that quickly. However, I do understand that Tropius learns Aerial Ace, so getting hit by that is not going to treat Venusaur very well. He does get to a charge move here before I can get to the Frenzy Plant, and it will be the Aerial Ace. Venusaur is very weak, and I have to get this Tropius off the battlefield, so I fire off the Frenzy Plant. In comes this Registeel again, and I go straight for the Frenzy Plant. I know Registeel can tank this, but I'm trying to get it down low enough within KO range of the Toxicroak. I make a fast swap into Toxicroak. Here comes a charge move though, and it will be the Flash Cannon. In comes Venusaur and Death by Lock-On. Trainers, we're going to play the same opponent again randomly right after the first game, but it turns out we brought the same teams. So again, the swap into Ludicolo, but we play it differently this time, trainers. We bring in our Venusaur. Realizing that my opponent doesn't have a flying type Pokemon, I'm able to bring in my Venusaur here and go for the Frenzy Plants against the Ludicolo. Ludicolo being part water and part grass actually can get this work from Venusaur pretty easily with the Frenzy Plants. I do almost look for a farm down there, but I decided to go for the Frenzy Plant. I don't want to risk another Ice Beam. My opponent does have one shield. In comes this Registeel, but this time, trainers, I've got a ton of energy and my Frostlass is still healthy and fresh in the back. So I do fire off a second Frenzy Plant here, just trying to put as much pressure on Reggie as I can. That Reggie's already deep into the yellow. Here comes a charge move, and Venusaur has done a wonderful job, so I do let it faint. In comes Toxicroak, and these counters are adding up really quick. Registeel is down. In comes Tropius, and I have an Ice type and the Sludge Bomb from my Toxicroak to defend against this. So, same teams, same opponent, very different games because of one single swap. In this game, trainers, I lead Zweilous into Registeel. We're seeing lots of Registeel leads. Zweilous being a Dark Dragon is not going to do great against Registeel, but it won't be terrible either. In comes my Poliwrath to try to catch Registeel, but the swap comes as expected. That's the one thing, trainers, if you bring a team of 3 with hard counters, it's so important to get your hard counter lined up where you need it to be. Now that my Poliwrath is lined up against Azumarill, I am in big trouble. I know the Play Rough is coming through here, and the Play Rough is going to rock my Zweilous as well, so it really comes down to my third Pokemon to handle this Azumarill. I do fire off a second Dynamic Punch, bringing that Azumarill really low, and my third Pokemon is Bastiodon, so not a great situation for me at all. Again, trainers, at this point, I didn't think there was any way I could win this match. This felt like it was pretty one-sided. In comes that Registeel again. I go straight into Zweilous. I am going to shield up my Pokemon, though, protect it from the Focus Blast. Being a part Dark type, that Focus Blast would really hurt. My opponent actually decides to shield this Body Slam, which is very interesting to me. As you can tell here, after this Body Slam, it doesn't really do a whole lot of damage to Registeel, so that was definitely a wasted shield there. In comes a flash cannon as well. So again, not going for the focus blast. Another mistake by my opponent. I'm not trying to rag on my opponent at all. I really respect everybody that I battle against, but I just want to highlight some things that they could have done better. The Dragon Breath works down that Haunter really low. And at this point, trainers, I think I can survive a couple of Shadow Balls. We survived one. I cannot take another, but we look for the farm down here against Haunter. I am going to decide to shield this final attack for obvious reasons. And then in comes Registeel. We actually get to the Flamethrower, and we find a way to claw our way back into this match. GG's. Going to this game, I actually rock with a Caleb Peng team. This is a 4-0 run with this exact line in this exact order. We're playing against my friend Herides here. He does lead that Lantern, and out comes Meganium, but Toxicroak is such a flexible Pokemon, trainers. Sludge Bomb is going to wreck Meganium, so my opponent shields it knowing that, but I did stay in too long, so I have to spend a shield on my Toxicroak here. But on the same token, due to my energy lead, I'm actually able to get to another Sludge Bomb here. So we fired that off, taking my opponent's second shield. In comes my Umbreon. Umbreon is such a tanky Pokemon. It can definitely take one Frenzy Plant, probably take 2 Frenzy Plants, no problem, as you're going to see here. So Caleb Peng is another content creator, an elite battler, an awesome, awesome guy. And I borrowed his team straight from his video. I will leave a link down in the description below. This team is anti-meta. This team is awesome, and it really wrecks the typical Registeel, Azumarill, Defense Deoxys kind of framework that you see a lot of in the Go Battle League. So my opponent does spend their energy taking down my Umbreon. In comes my Toxicroak though. We're able to farm down Lantern, which is really, really nice. We still have a single shield as well, which is good for us. In comes Meganium, and I go here for the Sludge Bomb. If I'm being nitpicky, I might have been able to do Mud Bomb and still take it out, but I just wanted to be sure. In comes Alolan Muck. Alolan Muck, being part poison, is going to be very weak to these Mud Bombs. That is super effective damage. A few more counters add up. Toxicroak crushes that team. GG's, Herides. Can't wait to face you again. Here we go with another Toxicroak into Registeel lead. In comes Clefable, and this is not a good situation for me. I do bring in my Azumarill here and go straight for the Ice Beam. I'm attempting to get a shield for my opponent here, and we get it, which is really nice. Now, at this point, I cannot tank a Meteor Mash, or at least I don't think I can. I don't know exactly, according to the Sims, how much damage it does, but I just wanted to be safe. So I fire off the Play Rough here against Clefable, and it does get shielded. So I earn both of my opponent's shields here, which is really nice. I do get farmed down with the Charms, but it's not a huge deal because in comes Toxicroak, and I have a Mud Bomb. So I'm going to put an end to this Clefable's Charm streak really, really quick. My opponent is going to bring in their Registeel, which tells me that whatever they have in the back is very weak to Toxicroak, and it is Blaziken. So this Mud Bomb is going to really hurt that Blaziken. Couple counters seal the deal. In comes Registeel. I'm actually trying to catch the charge move here with Umbreon just to be super safe. I probably could have left in Toxicroak, but I didn't want to leave anything up to chance, and this extra chip damage from the foul play is going to ensure that the one Mud Bomb that I fire off is going to be enough to take down the Registeel. We actually get to a second foul play here, which is just icing on the cake. This Registeel is very, very weak. And at this point, I'm going to let Umbreon go. In comes Toxicroak to tie up yet another game. Going to game 3, same squad, trainers, same team. Toxicroak at this time is going to lead into that Melmetal, another favorable lead. Melmetal switches out into Altaria, and this is the one kind of downside about Caleb's team that I found in my practice personally, is that it doesn't have a really strong flying type counter. I mean, Umbreon is a great generalist, and Azumarill has Ice Beam, so you do have coverage options. It's not a bad team against Flyers, trainers, but there are certain weaknesses, as with every team of 3. But overall, I really, really loved this team. I really enjoyed it. Shout out to Caleb. Thank you for being anti-meta and being awesome. We fire off that Ice Beam and really hurt that Altaria. In comes that Melmetal yet again, and here I'm just trying to get a little bit of chip damage. Again, trying to be very patient and not switch lock myself into my Toxicroak, because I know it's the key to beating down this Melmetal, and it has enough flexibility to answer probably anything in the back. My opponent undercharges Rock Slide. We are able to get to another Ice Beam, which is just icing on the cake. This Melmetal is extremely weak. I bring in my Toxicroak here, and we both encounter some lag. Not a huge deal, one counter. In comes Whiscash, and I do not want to get hit by a Mud Bomb from Whiscash. So this isn't a great situation. My opponent still has a shield, but I do have 2 shields of my own. I'm actually not going to let my Toxicroak stick around here. I'd rather bring in Umbreon with 2 shields, because the Mud Bomb is going to hurt, but Umbreon is just so much bulkier. I'd rather put all of my chips on the table and push them towards Umbreon, because Umbreon can really win this matchup in a dominant fashion with the shield advantage. So I do go here for the foul play, and this match is pretty much just, at this point, we're just kind of playing it out. I do go for 7 snarls there, trainers, which means I get a back-to-back foul play. I did learn that from the Ferocious Cup, which was a lot of fun. Here comes another Mud Bomb from my opponent, and then one more foul play is going to seal the deal. So far, we've done well with this team, trainers. Let's try it one more time. In comes Toxicroak, and we encounter Bastiodon. Again, another wonderful lead for us. My opponent swaps out into Alolan Marowak, and again, Toxicroak with its flexibility. We're going to drop this Mud Bomb on this Alolan Marowak. Super effective damage. I make a swap here into a Azumarill as well. In hindsight, I probably could have gone with my Umbreon, as it is a Dark-type Pokemon that would counter this Alolan Marowak very well. Here, actually, my opponent fires off another Bone Club. I had a feeling it could be a Shadow Ball, but I wasn't counting in the moment. Either way, we didn't shield, which was the right move. In comes this Meganium, and I go straight for the Ice Beam. My opponent's going to allow that through as well. So because of the energy we generated from the Alolan Marowak, we're actually able to get to a second Ice Beam, which is really awesome. In comes a Frenzy Plant from Meganium, and I'm not going to spend any shields here on Azumarill. It's done a wonderful job for me so far. I do wait down the switch timer, come in with Umbreon here, and as we saw earlier, Umbreon can definitely tank some Frenzy Plants from Meganium, no problem. That Frenzy Plant's going to land. In comes a foul play from me. And again, trainers, now we are just playing a very patient game, trying to get that Melmetal to come out, the Bastiodon to come out, and it does. So we're going to fire off the Mud Bomb here against the Bastiodon. I'm expecting a charge move pretty soon, but my opponent lets it go. GG's. Here we go, trainers, same team, but this is where the wheels come off. Here comes the Azumarill lead. Now, Caleb did recommend that we fire off the Sludge Bomb here against Azumarill, but my opponent switches into Altaria. And Altaria is going to be a little bit tricky to counter with this team, as we talked about before. I get some energy together and bring in my Azumarill, and this opponent really throws a wrench in my plans. This team worked out for me so well, and it seems like it could be favorable now, but my opponent gets very creative here in a second. So I do fire off the Ice Beam here, and he lets his Altaria go, and then in comes Toxicroak. So another Toxicroak lover on the battlefield here, just battling it out. We just lined up our Toxicroaks differently. My opponent does decide to shield the Play Rough, and here, expecting it to get to another Play Rough, I actually shield, and then I bring in my own Toxicroak. In comes their Azumarill. So we're seeing not quite a mirror match, but we're just flipping back and forth between the same Pokemon, which is really, really funny. My opponent does go ahead here and fire off the Play Rough to bring down my Toxicroak. And now I have the mirror match, or I have a Pokemon that's weak to Azumarill. So I'm not in a great situation at all. My opponent still has 3 Pokemon, so again, not really sure what to do here. The Play Rough does land, doing a ton of damage. I'm going to try to shield bait with the foul play, just to try to get something out of this matchup, but I don't get the shield. I do go for the Last Resort, which will do more damage. It is definitely the right move to do, but again, trying to get the shield, and here comes my Azumarill against their Azumarill, and I do decide to shield the Play Rough. In comes Toxicroak, and we reach a CMP tie. In comes the Sludge Bomb, and Azumarill is done. In comes the Toxicroak versus Umbreon, and Toxicroak is going to work this Dark-type Pokemon, so this is basically GG's. Going to this game, trying Caleb Peng's team again. This time we run into Gary Oak 620, a very highly respected trainer. In comes Hypno, and I immediately have to get out of there. Hypno is going to destroy Toxicroak. In comes Umbreon, and my opponent is prepared with a hard counter. He does have Azumarill. So, as we saw in a match just a second ago, the Play Rough is going to be devastating against my Umbreon here. And at this point, I guess I should just let it go. I did lose the lead and then lose the hard counter, so things are not really going our way. I do fire up the Last Resort, just trying to get some chip damage in. Expecting another charge move, I go for the foul play here. Again, just trying to chip down the Azumarill a little bit further, because other than that, there's not much Umbreon can do. I do decide to shield to keep my Umbreon alive in case I can line it up with Hypno later. In this game, I really try to stay alive as long as possible, trainers, but eventually I run out of ground. He does fire up the Play Rough. In comes Registeel. So again, these counters are lining up perfectly. If these teams would have been positioned a little bit differently, For example, if I led Umbreon into Hypno, it would be a different game. It's just the way these hard counters lined up in these blind matches is really, really tough. Trainers, rank 10 has been really hard, and if you are losing games, I don't want you to feel discouraged. This is our first kind of foray into Pokemon Go PvP as a mainstay in the game, a new release. This is not Silpharina, this is something built into the game, and it's really just kind of for fun. I lose tons of rank 10 matches, and I did highlight some of my losses here for you to see. Again, just trying to stay alive. I fire off the play rough against this Hypno, but again, just get Psychic down. Not enough left in the tank. In comes my Umbreon. I'm going to shield just to preserve my honor, but as I was saying, trainers, these blind matches are a lot of fun, but you can't win them all. You just need to go out there and do as good as you can and just learn as much as you can, because I really think we're going to see a lot more facets of the game introduced in later weeks and months. So definitely keep on training, keep on practicing. I hope you enjoyed these rank 10 battles. Shout out to Caleb Peng, and I hope you liked the video. So leave me a like, comment down below what you thought, and then subscribe to see more.